first half of the Seraph of the End Vampire Reign anime series has come to an end. Was it any good? I'd have to say a little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. Yes and no. The final episode of the first part of Seraph of the End was kind of anticlimactic in many senses. I expected that there was going to be a massive battle between the vampires and the Hiragi family, and really, we don't get that. What we do get, however, is some resolution for the characters of Yu and Mika and all the people who survived this big-ass battle. Big things to take away from this episode. Yu's been in a coma for about a week. He gets out of it, he spends some time with his friends, and he realizes that he finally does have a new family that he loves. It's very heartwarming and it's very schmaltzy. But the real star of this week's episode is definitely Shinoa, who, for a lot of people, is a very love-hate character. Personally, I think she's really good. She's a little stock in many senses, but then again, so are most of the characters in this series. I also like the fact that we get to learn that the Imperial Demon Army is actually experimenting on vampires in this underground lab, which is a really great thing to do because it sort of paints them in a more negative light, so basically, you don't really know who to root for in the end of this series. I mean, yeah, the vampires are monsters, but they probably have some other reasons to fight against the humans because the humans, again, are experimenting on this world-ending stuff known as the Seraph of the End, or the Owari no Seraph, and this is going to be some pretty bad news for the vampires. You mess with the Owari no Seraph, you're gonna have a bad time. But going back to the whole Shinoa-Yu love angle, there's a scene where she confronts Gurren, and Gurren basically just shoos her away saying, "This is adult business, get the hell out of my office." She then goes to see Yu, they have a nice moment together, where it almost seems like they're going to have a lovey-dovey moment, but really he's just looking at the vampire bite marks on her neck. That's when we sort of go back and forth in time, just seeing how the battle ended, with the Hiragi family coming in and pretty much just wiping out the vampires. Aside from some of the big nobles, we see that Farad gets pissed off at Mika and decides to choke him out and literally drag him back to the vampire's stronghold, and it looks like he's going to get a scolding of sorts from Cruel Tepes, who unfortunately had zero dialogue in this week's episode. She's a very charismatic character, and I want to learn a little bit more about the hierarchy of the vampires, but they tend to keep that on the back burner a little bit. But at the end of the day, this episode was about Yu realizing that he now has a new family and he has to take care of them, while all at the same time he still wants to save his friend. But the most interesting plot development, without a doubt for me, is one of the final scenes at the very end of the episode, where Farad is giving some very important information to what appears to be a human, a traitor. Who is the traitor? We're just gonna have to wait and find out. And that's because they're gonna start up the next season this October, which I think is really great timing. It's a vampire show. It's gonna be airing in October. Perfect time for Halloween. I really hope they make those episodes really creepy. That's an angle I really think they need to work with on this series. Otherwise, what's the rundown on this week's episode of Seraph of the End Vampire Reign? Schmaltzy. Very, very schmaltzy. Just a make you feel good kind of episode, which is honestly, I wasn't expecting that. I thought this episode was going to be really, really dark and end with a massive cliffhanger, and you didn't really know what was going to happen. But no, it actually had some nice resolution, and they did have that one nice little hook we're seeing where we get to see who Farad's going to be working with. I think that's going to be really interesting. Who's it going to be? I think it could actually be Gurren. I think he could actually be betraying everyone. This could all be a very elaborate act on his part. I especially like that scene at the end, which was very atmospheric. I'm not quite sure what he was doing, but he was writing out this note, and there was this amazing piano jazz soundtrack, which was going over the last part of the episode, which sounded really good. Probably some of the best music that I've actually heard from the entire series. My overall thoughts on the Seraph of the End anime series, this first part of the season, is that it's basically just an average action anime series. It's not redefining anything, it's not reinventing the wheel, but it is fun to watch. It has some pretty interesting characters, and I like some of the stylistic choices that it makes. I especially like the backgrounds of the series, which look like big, epic scaled paintings, which really add a lot of atmosphere to this post-apocalyptic world. Another thing that I hope to see from the next season is hopefully an increase in budget. I really hope that the action scenes look a little bit better. There are some cool ones in the series and some really nice moments. In fact, my favorite action scene wasn't even like a battle with vampires. It was the very first time you got to see Shinoa's scythe weapon when she was demonstrating it for Yu. That's probably my favorite scene from the entire series. I just loved it. I especially loved all the particle effects from the demon that she summoned. But after after that, there really wasn't anything that sort of blew me away. I mean, there were some cool moments, but nothing that you couldn't see in other anime series. Despite that, I still got a lot of enjoyment out of watching the series. I love the music from it. I still think the intro is really good, and one of the better intros that we've seen from this season, the spring season. So overall, this was a nice, make-you-feel-good finale, which is going to get some people hooked for the next season. So let's stay tuned. This October, it's going to be a very vampire-y Halloween. So I'm going to give this week's episode right here a 3 out of 5. A pretty good atmospheric episode, but really not that much went down. But still, it had some nice hooks, which might get some people interested in seeing the next part of the series. So check it out, Seraph of the End fans. Whether you read the manga version or you've been following this version, check it out. You might see something you like. You heard my thoughts on this week's episode, but what about you guys? What did you think of the final episode of the first part of Seraph of the End? Do you have a favorite character from this episode? What do you hope to see from the next season? And what did you think of this season right here? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it, share it with all your friends, and make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you can see all of our latest anime and manga reviews and our podcast show, The Powerful Nerdcast. You guys can also follow us on social media. Thank you guys again for watching, and remember, if you want to see my previous reviews of the Seraph of the End anime series, there will be a playlist for it on the channel, so check it out, share it with all your buddies. It's really cool stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!